celebration of the LeaderLink Summit that was designed actually by the OUCAN Board of Directors. So we first launched the summit in 2017 as a 3-day leadership event that explores and supports capacity building in OUCAN member agencies. We also wanted to kind of focus on like larger nonprofit community by looking at personal and professional development skills of agency leaders and their staff. So when we give you those tools or provide the access for those tools, we are supporting leadership and shifting to a lot of different things that will continue to make the Ohio Urban Community Action Network a trending and a valuable organization and community. So this summit is, of course, open to all OUCAN members and all nonprofit professionals. We seek to create kind of like a hybrid learning environment for emerging and seasoned leaders through the networking and these shared experiences. So you may hear today some experiences from your peers, from other leaders, and we hope that will allow us to continue to build on ways that we can make things better for each other. So today's objective for you to walk away is, one, to discover your leadership strength and like build on that to create a value for your team. We would want you to walk away with developing some new strategies. There's going to be some things that you may hear today, our panelists, our keynote speaker, Ms. Kate Wilson, that will enhance employee engagement and create a culture of collaboration, commitment, and inclusion, because that's really what it's all about. Thirdly, enhance your ability to create, influence, and foster organizational change. There is no movement, there's no change without our leadership. We are all responsible for being able to shape the culture of our respective organizations. And today's conversation hopefully will embolden you to be able to do so. And then the last takeaway is to build personal action plans for deep change in yourself and in others. Change has to begin with you, and we all are change agents in our agencies. And so we hope that today you will take those notes and make them applicable to your workspace. So now, as we explore this conversation, training for multi-generational workplace, I have to tell you all, this is one of my favorite conversations. I love talking about the various generations. What did we learn from the previous generation and how the younger generations continue to help us explore? So as we think about this conversation, we know that there's like a lot of misconceptions dealing with different generations in the workplace, and it requires, and sometimes it provokes conflict management. However, understanding generational differences in the workplace is no different than any other approach to creating an inclusive working environment. Think about all of the other things that we infuse in the workspaces, and so multi-generational isn't different. So I wanted to share with you that recently, researchers at the Harvard Business Review found that the generational differences among employees may be smaller than originally perceived. That millennials, people say millennials only want to communicate with coworkers via text. Or people say baby boomers don't text, right? Like they don't even know how to use their phone. And we all know that's not true, because we've seen our bosses in the workplace run circles around technology, right? And then people say things like, oh, you need to do this to attract Gen Zs, or you need to have flexible work schedules. And if you don't have all of those things, then they're no longer attracted to that kind of workspace. And that's not true. 7 out of 10 adults that were polled during the AARP online survey says that older workers appreciate younger colleagues, their tech skills, their creativity, and they appreciate their new perspectives. And younger employees in that same survey poll says that they value older coworkers. They value for their wisdom and for their experience with navigating the workplace. So the survey of about, I think it was about 1,000 adults aged 18 or older showed last year that multi-generational in the workplace is actually what we want to see. And then you'll also see in this particular slide, this like infographic, that today we're going to be talking about the 5 generations, but we are witnessing in real time the emergence of Generation Alpha. So Generation A's were born early 2010 to 2025. And so right now, the Gen A's are approximately zero, they're infants, to maybe 10 years old. So for purpose today, we're going to just talk about the 5 generations because we're waiting as a society to still figure out more characteristics and learn more about Gen A's. So now let's take a quick pause here and let's do a poll. Let's see who's in the room. So we got our silent and traditionalists. We have the baby boomers, Generation Xers, the millennials, and Generation Zs. Now keep in mind that these birth periods are not always the same. There are some researchers who may be off by a couple of years, give or take, but generally speaking, these are the birth periods. So I'm going to ask Ms. Sharon to launch our poll. Let's find out who's in the room today. Tell us who you are. Please, for number 1, select your generational birth period. Let's see if we got come on, Gen Xers. I'm a Gen Xer, come on now. I always brag about our generation. We are the hip hop generation. We are the best. Who's with us? We'll give it a few more minutes. Some people probably don't remember when they were born. You all don't remember when you were born? You don't know your birth year? All right. But let's give you about 10 more seconds, and then we're going to end the poll to see who is represented with us today. All right, Ms. Sharon, can we please end the poll now and share the results? It looks like 47% of today's participants were born between 1965 and 1980. And you know what that means, right? Gen Xers, our popular generation for today. Great to see so many of our baby boomers are in the room and our millennials. Awesome. All right, Sharon, let's go to our second question. We have another poll question for you. We're just waiting for Sharon to upload the second poll question so that we can continue to see who's in the room with us today. Sharon, okay, just give us one more second. Here we go. Here we go. All right, everyone, please tell us which generation do you most identify with? The reason we're asking that question, as some of you may know, based on some science research, some of the years may be off by a year or two. So there are some generations who you may cross over a little bit. For example, in the Generation Xers, up to 43 years old may make you a young or an older millennial versus a in the middle kind of Generation Xer. So sometimes there are some people that may be born in that time period. However, they may be considered kind of an older characteristics of that generation or a younger characteristic of that generation. So let us see who you are. We see one hand raised. Marilyn, we're going to ask that you hold the questions. Just hold your questions for now, please, until we get to a little bit towards the middle of the agenda, please. All right, 10 more seconds for this poll. And then we're going to ask Sharon to stop and share the results so we can see, again, if 47% of our participants were born between 1965 and 1980, and that is our Generation Xers. 45% of our participants today are Generation Xers. Woohoo! We have another 34% of our millennials represented today. Woohoo! And then 21% of our participants today are baby boomers. Yay. Awesome. Awesome. All right. One more, Sharon. One more poll. One more question. You all are doing an amazing job. Thank you. All right, last question for this series. How do you describe your ideal communication style? This question comes up because as we discuss some of the myths and debunking some of the stereotypes that face each of the generations, we want to be clear that just because I subscribe to a certain generation doesn't necessarily mean that, characteristically speaking, I don't enjoy other communication styles from other different generations, or the style that has been assigned to that generation. So tell us, how do you describe your ideal communication style? Are you the type of person you require more of a personal touch? Do you enjoy more handwritten notes? You know, someone at your workplace had a great day or they've done something awesome and you actually take the time to write them a handwritten note. Do you prefer face-to-face? You want your team to be able to come to you and have discussions about challenges, or maybe even some of the rewards and great things are going on? Or do you prefer the kind of telephone call, instant messages, or text messages, or emails? What is your preferred or ideal communication style? And so we are going to end the poll in about 10 seconds so we can see what is the popular style for at least this group, regardless of your generation. What is your popular style, communication style? All right, and Sharon is sharing the results, and it looks like 48% of us prefer face-to-face. I would agree, obviously, for any generation, and particularly in a diverse community, we may want to have face-to-face conversations to help alleviate some of the issues and maybe sometimes miscommunication. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about the generations in the workplace, our work styles, and then how do we show up and contribute in those spaces. In December 2022, Indeed, the HR firm, published their 5 generations in their workspace, their values and their differences. And we can provide that link for you all to follow the article for yourself. Now, keep in mind that when we're talking about work styles of generations or their contributions in the work space, it doesn't mean that it's a direct social science, but there are enough studies and enough polls and surveys and enough history and researchers studying the multiple generation for us to at least understand, how do we show up in our workspaces and what do we contribute? So on this first slide deck, it is known, or it is characterized, that silent and let's talk about the 3 generations that are at least represented today. So we know that we are represented by Generation Xers at about 47%. I think the baby boomers were about 35%, and then a large portion of our millennials. Generation Xers as work styles have been characterized to be more independent, that they like personal development, and that their common traits in the workplace are more individualized. These professionals value a healthy work-life balance, and they prefer working for companies that offer monetary awards such as bonuses and company stock options. So if you're working with Generation Xers, and sometimes their work style, they prefer maybe to work alone, or they don't mind getting work done so that they can still spend time with their family, just understand that that's part of their style. Whereas our baby boomers, their work style closely resembles more of a professional, likely to have like a traditional mindset in the workplace, meaning that they often value an established hierarchy of responsibility and authority. So they want to know kind of who's in charge. They want to understand the organizational chart. And they don't often need as much constant feedback about their work, but they might like a little bit more insight on professional development opportunities or things to help them be able to succeed in their roles. So again, this is loosely characterized of baby boomers and their work styles in our workspaces. So that if, again, in your team space, you have a baby boomer who, they really do appreciate having that hierarchy. They have to know who is the supervisor on this particular project, or who is the person who can authorize maybe more spending, or whatever the case may be. So this is who you are working with at your respective agencies. And then we got our millennials. The millennials, and again, this is loose terms, everyone. This is not direct science. It still does not take into consideration your individuality. But millennials are often results oriented, and they may help older generations integrate new technology at the workplace to improve efficiency. Millennials are also very much known for being able to work smarter and not harder. They are really clever at figuring out some other ways to be able to complete multiple assignments or multitask in ways that sometimes other generations had not been able to master. So again, these are just kind of some loose ways for you to consider who are you working with at your organization. Now let's talk about really quickly the contributions. What are the contributions of some of our generations, our staff, when we're working with them? So when we think about, again, our baby boomers, and this is how they show up in a workspace, this is how they contribute to the work environment, whether it be a special project or how they're supporting clients or whatever the case may be. This is how baby boomers contribute to their workspace. So people from this generation might be willing to take risks to challenge the status quo. And we know that's true. Remember, a lot of our baby boomers are very much responsible for the great movements across our country and globally, because they will challenge authority in a way to help create, innovative workspaces and like inspire people to do more and be more. They're often motivated to serve in higher level positions that allow them to teach younger generations about relationship development and communication, and making them good mentors. I know that in my career, I have had the great pleasure of working with a number of baby boomers who have been great mentors, coaches, because they have learned some things in a different era of how to be able to communicate when it's a challenging situation or going through certain crises that some of us may not have had experience. So working with baby boomers and knowing how they contribute in the workplace as perhaps mentors and coaches is a good thing for you to keep in mind. Then you're looking at the Generation X professionals who might be a little bit more skeptical of like current procedures, and they may not want to take as many risks and things like that. And this is also born out of that era. Generation Xers were part of a time period in which many industries and manufacturing companies and just really large institutions began to shut down or close down. And so there was no longer this history of long employment or long careers standing for 20, 30, 40 years. And because of that, many Generation Xers were taught to become more marketable because they knew that they may not have the same opportunity as their parents to stay on the job for 20 or 30 years. So they tend to be a little bit more skeptical sometimes in the workplace. But they still contribute, again, to making sure that there is progress and innovation. And then lastly, for the purpose of this discussion, the way our millennials often contribute is, they're passionate. We see them all the time when they come to us about a certain project or thinking about an initiative they would like for us to try. They are so motivated and they're so passionate about creating relaxed work environments. They're not afraid to challenge authority or status quo and to devise innovation solutions to the workplace. They want to see things progress and move forward. And so that's the joy and the beauty that they bring, our millennials often bring to contribute to the workplace. So before we move on to this fabulous keynote speaker, Sharon, let's take another poll and let's take another pulse of our participants, and let's kind of see who else is in the room in terms of how they show up at work. What are your contributions at work? What are your preference areas? So let's do some little fun workforce discussions. By 2025, which generation will make up 75% of the global workforce? Will it be The silent traditionalists? Will it be the baby boomers? Is it the Generation Xers, millennials, or Gen Zs? By 2025, which generation will make up 75% of the global workforce? We must have stumped you with that one. It looks like the results are coming in a little slower on this one. By 2025, which generation would make up 75% of the global workforce? We're going to give you about 10 more seconds to answer this question. And let's see who has their... Is someone Googling? You better not be going to Google, guys. Don't go to Google. I'm sure someone pulled out their phone and perhaps found the research or the article. Don't do it. Don't cheat. All right, Sharon, let's end this particular poll question. And here we are. Absolutely. That is absolutely correct. With 60% responses for millennials, that is absolutely correct. By 2025, the millennials will make up 75% of the global workforce. That is absolutely correct. And again, in our materials, we'll make sure you have a reference list of all of the articles and the research information that was quoted today. All right, Sharon, can we scroll up a little bit and go to number 2? Do we need to go back, Sharon? Can we just scroll up just a bit so we can answer question number 2? Poll number 2. Okay, guys, hold on one second. Sharon is doing a whole lot. That's one of the reasons why she is my work wife, and I love her dearly. Sharon, can we scroll up or no?
I am scrolling. I'm not sure why you can't see it.
Okay, I can't. Oh, okay. Apparently I had to. I'm sorry, guys. It was something I needed to do. Okay, my apologies, everyone. All right, so you've answered all of the other questions. So number 2, which generation is currently the largest cohort in the workplace at 35%? So 35% of our current workplace cohort, which generation represents? And with 73%, you all answered Generation Xers. I have to inform you that is not correct. It is actually our millennials. Yeah, the millennials are currently the largest cohort at 35%. However, Generation Xers are not far behind. Their number was like 31%. So it's not very far behind. But currently, the millennials are the highest, the largest generation population in the workplace. And then lastly, startup funders make up 55% of this generation. And with 37%, you all answered emphatically the baby boomers, and you are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct. Baby boomers have been known to take leadership or entrepreneurship, startups, businesses, and that is correct. So thank you all so much. Sharon, was that our last poll? Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
It is now my pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker. Beyond her being an excellent friend and a confidant, Kay Wilson is an international consultant, executive coach, and business growth strategist with a 20-year background in fundraising, marketing, and community engagement. She speaks, she coaches, and she trains on power of inclusion, inclusive leadership, cultivating high performance, and building stewardship while empowering the next generation of leadership. She loves the young people, you all. I have to tell you that she loves young people. Her foundational business skills include cultivating next-gen leaders and helping nonprofits with major gifts, campaigns, and strengthening donor loyalty, increasing the number of donors and size of their donations. Kay's focus on equity and branding development helps companies activate unique and impactful solutions and messaging, community mobilization, and leadership succession to achieve a healthy and equitable culture. It is my pleasure again to introduce to you today's keynote speaker, Ms. Kay Wilson.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Yvonne. So I wanted to tell any of you who, if you were like me and you think this is a multi-generational parent and children conversation, you're on the wrong leadership summit this morning. Although I would like to think that that is a subject that I could speak on very well, seeing that I'm dealing with my own multi-generational challenges in the home with parents and children. That is a session that I would set up for. So if that was your thinking today, you are in the wrong session. So those of you who want to stick around and talk about multi-generational workforce and share some of your experience about what you're seeing in your workforce and maybe the challenges that you're having, you are in the right place. So we won't judge you. We can't see you. Those of you who have to click off now, but hopefully those of you who are here will be able to enjoy this conversation. So again, thank you to Yvonne and Oh You Can. This is, I think, the third LeaderLink Summit that I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to be a participant as well as try to be engaged with the audience. And so I am very excited and appreciate the fact that Oh You Can offers this opportunity and encourages folks to tune in and participate so we can work together really in the communities that we are sharing our work in. So thank you very much. So Yvonne, do you have, or do I have access to share my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 1 second. All right. Can everyone see?
No, okay, we can see your files. Hold on one. Need us to assist you? Hold on.
Let me try this one. Are we good?
Yeah, how about you take yours down and I'll share for you. I'll share for you and you just tell me when they advance the slide.
Okay.
I got you. I got you. All right.
Thank you. All right, so just want to start first slide, cross-generational synergy. So we really can't ignore the impact of intersectionality when it comes to age diversity. Specifically, one report that noted that only 8% of organizations actually include age as a part of their DEI strategy. Usually we have the obvious race and ethnicity, physical diversity as well, ability. And so we want to make sure that we're incorporating age into our conception and definition of workplace diversity so we can create an inclusive and supportive team environment that recognizes team members as individuals rather than generational caricatures. So as Yvonne started off, we all have our biases, things that we've heard. And as we've seen, older workers who have generally dominated the workplace for decades are actually trying to stay in it longer due to better health and longevity. Their retirement age is also ticking up, whether it's here in the US, globally, we are seeing that more countries are deciding that the retirement age is changing. So where people were talking about the great resignation during COVID, now they're referring to it as the great sabbatical because people are also increasingly returning to work and the early retirement trends are really slowing and being reversed. So we want to look at next slide, what's happening? So looking at the trends, we have younger colleagues who are anxious for change and upward mobility, and they're often really impatient for our older generation, wondering when they're going to move on. We also have boomers and digital natives who work side by side, and we see that sometimes there's tensions for those to see whose contributions are actually more valued in the workplace. So with that, we're going to talk a little bit about the slide, thinking about each generation that brings something unique to the table. And it's our job as those who are working in the organization to really help foster and showcase potential of all of our colleagues. And so a successful workforce really means recognizing the individual beyond the group. So I want to hear a little bit or see some of what you guys put in the chat about what you're seeing. What is your feedback? Any of you guys seeing anything specifically? Are you noticing that, your teams are getting younger? Are you noticing them getting older? All right, so we've got some who are sharing. So we want to look at next slide. The next slide. All right, so generational diversity benefits the teams in the following ways. We actually have higher employee performance and team productivity. Companies with mixed age work teams see higher productivity, improved company performance. Increases in age diversity have been found to have been substantial positive productivity and the effects that team brings. And then especially in companies that value innovation and creativity, we've seen an increase if their teams are actually led by a multi-generational group. So there's also,
Ms. Kay, I apologize for, unfortunately, the chat was disabled for a second there. So when you were asking your question about what people are seeing, maybe you want to go back just a little bit.
Yep.
Because people now can be able to respond.
Okay, sorry. No worries. All right, so those of you, are there any of you that, can share, like, what are you seeing, maybe your trends? Are you seeing those who are younger, older? Okay. Awesome. So we're seeing quite a mix. So if those of you, and I'm sorry, I can't see you, to poll who is in, we all know, if you're in community action or if you're familiar with community action agencies, that sometimes those who are most familiar with our programs and those who are also familiar and have a desire to work with us sometimes are the clients that we've previously served. And so generally having a mixture, looking at the younger, those of you who are saying both boomers and millennials, older, younger. So we really have a great mix on. So thank you guys for your responses. We really have a great mix that I'm seeing here about those of you and who you're working with. So Ms. Yvonne went over earlier really what the, what we're looking at as far as baby boomers. So we've got the baby boomers who were born between 1946 and 64. And though many baby boomers have retired, others will remain in the workforce. Like their predecessors, they do value hard work. And depending on, whether they have life circumstances where family members are close or far. Sometimes they want to continue to be engaged. We've got our Gen Xers, who is often overlooked compared to the more prominent characteristics of its neighboring generations. With Yvonne, I'm also, gonna give a big shout out to the Gen Xers. As a result, they're usually more direct, adaptable, and independent. We have our millennials. And, you'll hear several people say things about millennials, why they maintain the values of the previous generations. They're more tech savvy. They crave recognition and reassurance. This generation is always also extremely hardworking. And, we look at some of the ways they critically look at what financial uncertainty looks like and what a sense of achievement looks like for them in order to perform their best. Then we've got our Gen Zers. And right now, they're one of the most talked about generations in the workforce because, as Yvonne said, what is growing and what it is trending to be able to do in 2030 and 2050. And Gen Z is really known for being the most diverse, open-minded, and technology-savvy generation. We've seen that their biggest motivators are self-improvement and really making mission-driven impact. And so those of you who have younger folks who are coming into your fold in your organizations, usually because they look at the mission, they're paying attention to the mission. So the next slide, talking about my generation, it shows a little bit about, what we're talking about as we're going through Gen Z. But I also want you guys, those of you who are in community action, to pay attention to the silent generation. Those who are born between 1928 and 1945 puts them in their late 70s to mid 90s. But we do have folks that are working with our organizations as we're looking at folks who are low income, and most of them are retired, but they continue to participate as partners, board members, and donors, and other advisory positions to our CEO. So I want you to also consider, how some of your messaging comes across, right, to those who are also in the silent generation, because although they're not seen really coming through our doors, they are affecting how we advance our missions. So consider them as well. So the next slide, what is working? So I want to talk a little bit about some of the best practices, right? When we're looking at advertising hiring opportunities, making sure that we stick to more neutral wording and avoid terms and phrases that exclusively target a particular generation. Also try to incorporate images and graphics that show people from different age groups. People believe what they see. We also want to educate on our onboarding. We want to create DEI policies that are shared internally and externally, so they make all people feel seen. I'm sure that you guys, whether it's a commercial, right, whether it's a career path, you think about not only your personal experiences, but sometimes the best career path is the one that you see yourself in. So all people want to feel seen. And then it's really important to communicate inclusive core values that your organization has to unite your teams. Once people feel included, they feel that they can be part of something, they see themselves belonging, it makes that work that you have to do a lot easier. Then we talk about creating connections, right? Different people need different things from their manager. So ignoring differences or treating everyone the same way will have certain people that are on your team feeling devalued. Have conversations with your direct reports to understand what motivates them, the unique experiences they've had, and their preferred work styles. I probably think what's the small things that matter. The first time that our leadership decided when we were making a move that we would do desks that also have the ability to raise up so you can have a standing desk, right? So I would have never thought about that early in my career, but I'll tell you the difference that it makes in your productivity, right? And so think about what are some of those things that will help, right, to build connection with your folks in the work that they're doing and how they're doing it. And then we need to focus on the big picture. So excuse me, aligning your expectations and understanding how each team member contributes to company goals and success allows for more meaningful recognition and appreciation. Remind yourself that your team and everyone that you're working with is working towards the same goal. Then the fifth one, being curious and open to learn. One of the processes or things that I think has been helpful in my career, Yvonne mentioned it earlier, having your peer group that you have can have conversation with, but developing mutual mentorship within your team. Sometimes it takes those who are in the organization. Maybe you've been there for a while and you have a younger person that's coming on board, or older person that's coming on board. You can actually, because you know folks who are already on the team, really try to introduce people at maybe all staff meetings. Introduce people that you know not are just the same, right? Maybe the same age group, but maybe you know that they have the same experiences. Maybe you know that they were both played basketball, or they both, I'll be kind because Yvonne's on the line, they both like the Cleveland Browns. Maybe you can help them find some commonality when structuring the projects that you guys have to do together. So bring someone in if you know that they have commonalities and help break down those silos. So next slide, we look at how you work, who you work. So what does that mean? Great results really come from how you work, who you work. It's easy for us to really look at our generational stereotypes. For example, we have baby boomers who may think of millennials as tech obsessed and lacking people skills. Gen Zers may think that boomers are stubborn and inflexible. And the silent generation prefers more formal, direct communication, right? Your boomers may be the type that love walking around to do their management and engaging in face-to-face meetings. And Gen X could be comfortable with old and new forms, but prefer, just to be left alone, right? So we can't really take our biases, but how we work with who we work with is really important. So I want to poll again, if you can, in the chat, some things that I've seen experience within organizations that work, because you can't have a one size fits all, is really offering lunch and learns, right? We do have those baby boomers who, again, they may want to have physical, where they can ask questions, right, in person, want to have that opportunity to be able to communicate. And I also find that it's been across generation, right? So some people, they may be from a different generation, but they like that hands-on, right? They do want to know how to do their work and maybe be left alone doing it, but they really like to see that initial hands-on. Then there are those who participate in e-learning. So any of you who have had an opportunity in e-learning experiences, especially during COVID, please share that with me in the chat so I can see more about, what was your experience? Did you find that it worked for you? Or maybe not. All right, those who are in coaching as well. I've also seen that folks who set up mentor programs, right? So HR teams will actually pair new folks with some folks who are seasoned. So I like to call them our fresh and seasoned folks, right? They will actually be strategic in how they're setting up a mentor program to allow opportunity for organic coaching. So if that's worked for you, please put that in the chat. Or if it's something that you'd like more information on, I encourage you to reach out to OUCAN, whether you reach out to Sharon or Yvonne, and I can share with you some information about studies that I've seen and how to set up a mentor coaching program in your organization. And then looking at interactive training. So if you've been able to participate in interactive training, providing team building, right? Team building opportunities. I know at Impact Community Action, we always have team building opportunities at our all staff meetings. But if that is you, and you've had experience, or that's something you'd like to see more of, I'd like to see that in the chat too. All right, so next slide, how you work, right? Okay, working in isolation is strange, but once you were connected virtually, it became much more bearable. I like that. Yeah, we all had a lot to get used to, and we're still getting used to what, I don't know if it's ever safe to say post-COVID, but what, since we had the lockdown, what that means. So I wanted to take a moment just to look at what some folks call the big five. So if you're looking at the big five, we have psychologists who have identified certain measurable personality traits that they call the big five. And those are agreeableness, conscientiousness, extroversion, openness to experience, and neuroticism. And what we're hearing is that although these can be tracked, and we look across generations and what this means, that to the surprise of many, that these kinds of studies that they've been doing are revealing that personality changes tend to happen before people are the age 35 or after they're 60, right? And so these are traits that, although you may be from different generations, sometimes your personal experience, things that you've been through, maybe you feel like at your age, even if you're in your 20s now, you're like, I've been through what some people would never go through in a lifetime, the traumas or the things that I've overcome, you know, already in my 20s are a lifetime of traumas, right? And somebody who's, you know, 65, who may not have had those experiences, right? Some things will take you through those big five. And when you're looking at working with a team, all these big fives really can impact how your personality is. And so those later in adulthood seem to decrease on average in their openness to experience. They feel like I've seen it all, I've done it all, I've been around it all, right? And so they may be more prone to keeping to themselves, where some people will also identify that if they're more tech savvy, because the actual social interaction isn't, you know, kind of something that they favor. And so you look at whether it's an older generation or a new generation, there are commonalities based on those big five, because at any age, your life events can affect how you deal with others around you, right? So older in adulthood, particularly, researchers say that people's daily realities vary widely. And so factors like health and social support are really probably better predictors of someone's personality change and how they deal with other folks in the workforce. So one of the questions that, you know, I grapple with, and I ask you guys to consider, rather than thinking about somebody and their age and the challenge that you may have or the bias that you may have working with them, is to really have an opportunity to ask some of your colleagues, what are their lives like, right? Many of us think that, you know, our generation is a, you know, dial that we can modulate, right? And it will modulate our personality just based on our birthday. But there's something more reflective than just, you know, your age. It could be the hands of cards that you were dealt, right? Or it could be based on your environment and relationships or supports or non-supports that you've experienced throughout your, you know, your life, your commitments to other people and the expectations that you have. Somebody may seem aloof, but they're dealing with taking care of aging parents, right? They may be dealing with, they have a young child at home. And so we really have to think about, rather than just their age, asking people, what are their lives like, right? We often recalibrate our goals based on what's going on. And fortunately or unfortunately, sometimes that depends on, what we're going through at home affects what we're going through at work. So next slide, we want to look at the better sight for our bigger problems. So if you see in that slide, you see that diverse teams make better decisions 87% of the time. So what does that mean, right? That means that you can fuel innovation. So you can tap into younger generations for their ideas, and older generations can share their evergreen strategies and knowledge, right? You can build a strong talent pipeline because you get the best of both worlds. You get experience and innovation. So your older crew has insights into how things, may have been done, and your younger crew can think of ways to innovate the processes. Then you look at your performance and productivity. So regardless of everyone's tendencies, having younger and older generations can create an excellent environment for collaboration. And then one word that we hear in nonprofit all the time is sustainability, right? So sustainability can happen because having a multi-generational workforce really can increase your resilience. The diverse workforce can help generate ideas that can future-proof your organization or your program. And it means that your organization gets to tap into a lot of different knowledge, right? Thinking about how you can adapt based on what has already happened is really key. And then lastly, looking at your donor support, right? So the huge challenge is figuring out how your organization talks to different, multiple ages and audiences, and increasing your donor support. When you can figure out that mix that works for you, then you're able to appeal to those who want to give to your organization, maybe through the more traditional method, whether it's an event, or maybe you offer opportunity that people can do a one and done. It's mobile, right? It's a mobile opportunity. Through their phone, you can connect them to a person or a customer story that appeals to them. And because they're on their technology, they can use that. All right, so where your focus goes, grows. Next slide. So if you walk into your organization tomorrow, think about just what you're seeing, right? A multi-generational organization, you can focus on facts. Now, I opened up talking about a little humor regarding parenting and dealing with multi-generations in the house. You think about it. When all of you think alike, if everyone around you was the same age, right, you're going to tend to have thoughts that are similar, right, based on things. However, we all bring our own experience to it. But what I have seen is that when you have a multi-generational team that's working on developing a new program, thinking about how the organization is run, if they all have diversity of thought and experience and career experience, they tend to more closely scrutinize each other's actions, right? They become less entrenched in what groupthink is. And so they can focus on the facts, because some people, depending on their age and experience, how long they've been in a career, could have blind spots. We all have them. We all have them. So you can focus on the facts. Then you can also think about innovation. Conformity discourages innovative thinking. So diverse perspectives encourage new ways of thinking about old problems. And those of us who are in the poverty fighting business, poverty is an old problem, right? But we need to think about this in ways that we've done it and ways that we can do it. So we need to create an opportunity for people to have innovative thought around how things may have always been done. And then processing more carefully. So folks who process facts more carefully, when you're not in that group think, right? You're thinking of other people's perspectives and how they think differently than you. So teams really need inclusive leadership all throughout the organization so they can treat everyone fairly and respectfully. They can understand that opinions matter and that they can provide a sense of belonging. Next slide. Let's talk about knowledge retention. So your team members need to listen and consider the opinions of others. When it comes to data and analytics, many people will say, well, the numbers don't lie, and they feel that there's only an interpretation of the data. But are you looking at the numbers correctly? Right? Are you thinking about, have you considered the reason why the numbers are the way they are? Can you dig further to find root causes? And do you look at strong data as just a way to help, right? Because it can help immensely, but it also helps that you look at the numbers and consider other people's points of view and come to a joint consensus on what numbers are showing and how they should respond and what they're showing you. So also in thinking about inclusion. So inclusion is big to me because, you know, for me, it's never been a sense of, you know, am I included, right? Was I included in sports? But it was, do I belong? Did I feel a sense of I belong here? Are people, right, making me feel like I belong? So you need to think about that for your team and for how you do your own work. Are you making others feel like they belong? So the next slide. Groupthink stinks. So I encourage you guys to poll the people, poll your people. We also have groupthink that occurs all the time when people's desire to conform is stronger than the desire to make well thought out decisions. Oftentimes, even in the chat, right? It was great that Yvonne shared kind of like a blind polling, because oftentimes, you know, when you're looking at the chat and you're wondering, okay, I don't want to be the first one, right? I don't want to share because other people in my office may be on this chat. I'm not sure. But when you think about groupthink, it can lead to poor decision making because all group members may be afraid to go against the grain and suggest something new. All of us who are in different generations may have heard, right? We've all heard what people say about our particular generation. And so we may tailor what we say, right, to make sure that we're not reinforcing those biases. So when you have a diverse group to make decisions, you really bring out those great decisions and you limit groupthink, because of the more difference and the more multi-generational the group is, the more likely the individuals will feel more comfortable offering new ideas and questioning the ideas of others. And when ideas are questioned, it means that every possible outcome has been considered and more plans are developed to account for those great outcomes that we need to make sure that we're getting. So think about that. Then also think about, what is the implementation going to look like, right? So if you have an opportunity to rotate managers, not just for their own department, but rotate managers into other areas of your organization. right? Have a day or 1 day a quarter where you can rotate them to another program so they can see how does that other program work, because there's no better education for you and your organization than to have someone else from a different department move into that other department and see hands-on what are they having to deal with day to day. So then when those emails come to you, or those maybe infamous emails at 11 o'clock at night, right? When someone can empathize with what it is that you do during the day, right? And you can empathize with what they're doing during the day, you'll notice that the communication even gets better, it gets stronger. So think about, how you can implement that within your organization. And then we're going to skip this next slide, the business impact. We all hear about what the productivity, the quality, and the advantages look like. So I want you to just imagine, think about how you can extend yourself, challenge yourself to think about how you can extend yourself to someone from another generation. Sit down with them, maybe take them to lunch. I know sometimes that's our quiet time, right? We do so much work that, I don't want to spend my extra time with somebody at work. I want to get away during my lunchtime. But really, you will understand that when you foster and culture that collaboration, when you celebrate and engage with that person, you will realize that maybe you have more commonalities, whether it's in your personal lives, right? Or whether it's in just the things that you go through from day to day. So really keep the lines of communication open, tailor your approach to each individual so you can get ahead of some of the conflicts, because you understand their experiences, because you've had opportunity to talk with them. And then think about all the benefits, right? The benefits that you bring and the benefits that you believe that they bring. One of the best things that I think is a core value at Impact Community Action is, always start believing in that whatever is happening, the intent is good, right? Approach things that that whatever is being said, however you guys are communicating, whether you have frustration, the intent is good. And think about it. We all do this every day, right? If you're a parent, and you have more than one child, you can imagine, or even if you're an auntie or uncle to someone, right? Two beings who grew up in the same house with the same parents, they have different personalities. You don't choose to just, put one out. You can't. They're yours, right? That's the joy of it. That's the joy of parenthood. If you have a fur baby, it's the same thing, right? You may have experienced a dog growing up as a child and you decide, you know what? I think this is awesome. I want to get a pet, and you get a pet and you're like, what happened? This dog is Cujo. I don't know what just happened. I went from having Rottweilers and German Shepherds to having a miniature pinscher. And I will tell you, I have never seen such a big personality in all my life. That poor dog, I did not know what I was in for. And my kids, I love them immensely with everything I have, but I don't like them all the time, right? So our coworkers, it's not always about, are we liking them? It's about, are we all marching towards the same goal, right? We are all marching towards the same goal. All of you who are on this call, obviously, you're going through this because either you're looking for your own inspiration, right? You may be looking for just that one nugget of information that's going to help you with that coworker who's getting on your very last nerve, right? But remember that we all have our days. We all have our days. No matter what year we were born, every day is not the same. So we all have our days. So I want to hear from you guys. I put here meet your best team, looking at your board development, is it multi-generational, right? If you're with a community action agency, you know that we have to have a tripartite board, which I think is incredible, working with other nonprofits. We have the opportunity to have folks who are either in the community and have had the good experience or bad experience, right, with our services, so they can speak to that. And so that is a unique position that we have. And when you go through your doors, right, what do customers see? I think about every time I go to church on Sunday, right? If you have that wrong greeter at the door, you can think, well, maybe this church thing isn't for me. You can turn around and go sing hymns in your car, if the wrong person is at the door. So think about, what do customers see when they come in? And then in your building, how are you creating engagement? How are you taking responsibility for the one thing that you can control, which is you? You can control yourself and how you react. You can't control how you were born and what generation you were born in, but you can control how you're going to react to the situation and how you're going to try to make your environment work for you. So that is what I have. I'm open, I think, Yvonne, to a couple questions, maybe.
Okay, as usual, that was amazing. And while we're waiting for the questions to come through, let me help you all understand. So one of the things, I took 5 notes. I have my nuggets from Kay. I saw on, I think it was Instagram the other day. It was so funny when you're talking about fostering and celebrating those relationships with coworkers and colleagues who may not be of the same generation. And I saw something funny on Instagram that talked about how here I am, like 19, 20 years old, but my best friend at work is some 69-year-old grandma. Like, that's your girl. And I just remember, as Kay mentioned, growing up for the most part in the community action world. I am still friends with colleagues and coworkers from different generations, but because we took the time to cultivate those relationships at work, it helped. And as you mentioned before, it helps with 85% of diverse, teams make better decisions. As you mentioned before, we can be of the same generation, maybe we could be of the same, race or the same gender, but it's still the diversity of thought and experience that enriches us. As Kay mentioned before. And then the last thing I will say that I'm definitely walking away with is the Big Five. That Big Five should be the culture by which we all operate in our teams, that we bring everyone together. So Kay, as usual, you never disappoint. Well, except that little comment about the Browns. I do know, I'm going to hold you to that one. But outside of that, I loved it. I thought we were going to have a conversation about multi-generationalism in our own families too, because I have one of those. I have a millennial, and sometimes I don't know if I always understand him. But you gave me the Big Five. You gave us all these great nuggets. And so, seeing that we don't have any questions, I'm just going to ask everyone to just, give us a celebration and say thank you, thank you, thank you to our Kay for breaking it all down to us. And remember, the most important part: foster and cultivate the relationships. Try to get to know people for who they are. Like Kay said, ask them about their lives, not just because of their generation, but ask them. So Kay, we got a whole bunch of thank you, Kay, thank you, Kay, thank you, Kay, thank you, Kay. They love you, we love you, and thank you again for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Now we're going to move on to our next part. So it's 11:10, everyone. It's 11:10. I am going to give you a 5-minute break, just 5 minutes. And if you all know me, I'm going to use the word of Bernie Mac. Don't take one of those Bernie Mac breaks. Don't take a Bernie Mac break. Take a real 5-minute break and come on right back. And we're going to go right into our expert panelists. So 5 minutes at 11:15, we'll see you right back here so we can finish this awesome discussion. All right, good people. It is 11:15, and we welcome you back for the second part of today's LeaderLink Summit as we discuss training for a multi-generational workplace. And so it is my pleasure to present to you a very, very talented group of cohorts, some folks that I just absolutely adore. Each one of them special to me in some way or another, and each one of them outstanding in one way or another. I'm going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves a little bit more, but with us today, I'm so happy to share, is Mr. Dana Brock, Mr. Solomon Gardner, Miss Trevina Galladay, Miss Katie Oatsvall, and Mr. Brent Robinson. So if you all can give them kind of like a yay or whatever, that would be great. So I'm going to start with a first question. And Brent, for some reason, just so you all know, Brent is, I think he got logged off. So we're waiting for him to come back. So hopefully he'll sneak on back in here and be able to get started with the conversation. So listen, my wonderful experts and panelists, we hope maybe you had opportunity to look at the registration and do it. But if not, please tell us again your name, your title, your organization. And as Kay mentioned before, tell us your generation, what your generation you identify with, and what makes you a unique part of that generation. And let's continue to go in alphabetical order for now, just because of the screen, that may make it a little easier. So we'll start with Brother Brock first, and then Brother Gardner, then Sister Galladay, Oatsfield, and then Robinson. There he is. All right, so Brock is on you, sir.
Can you guys hear me? All right, you hit me with the Brother Brock. I felt like I was in church for a second there. I hope I turned the light down enough to take this glare off this kickball, y'all. So put your sunglasses on. All right, so my generation, first, my name is Dana Brock. I represent Impact Community Action. My role primarily here is as facilitation, quality assurance, and program manager. Primarily, I work with the reentry program for our formerly incarcerated men and women. Of course, that's a part of my story as well. And the generation that I most identify with is the Gen Xers, okay? Established in 1975 was me, born last of a dying breed. And I think the thing that makes us kind of stand out is we were like the last generation that actually played outside. And we were the generation who could create a game or a toy out of anything, very creative, very innovative. I grew up in poverty, so I know what it was to not have everything that my little heart desired. And literally, we were the generation where I would take a pop can, put it on the end of my bicycle wheel, and that was my motorcycle because it made the motorcycle sound. That's just the generation that we were. Very resourceful, very independent, able to adapt to anything. And we were right at that. I think the thing that makes us unique and very adaptable to all of these different changes in technology and in the workforce is we were right at the cusp of going from cassette players to CD players, going from VHSs to DVDs. And so we were right there at that transition, right dead smack in the middle. And I think that's the thing that enables us to stand out as a generation.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Solomon Garner, and I am an Extension Educator Coordinator with Ohio State University in the Department of Extension. I lead a program titled Urban Roots. So I teach young people agricultural education, as well as introducing them to agricultural careers in all the spaces of agriculture, not just gardening and farming, but actually like the engineering, the STEM, the business economics parts of agriculture as well. And I think what makes my generation as a millennial unique. And so Mr. Brock said that, y'all was the last to, play outside, but nah, we was still outside. We was out there running the football fields and the basketball courts. Like, that was us all day. But I think what makes us unique is we are the technology babies. Like millennials were born during that transition of, I wouldn't say an old life, but just the birth of technology and evolution. And so as technology has really grown and evolved, so has the millennials. And I think that gave us an edge of where we quickly learned that, we like to work smarter, not harder. And so we try to take advantage of that, so that is what makes us unique. And yeah, it's great being a millennial.
I think I'm next, right? Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Trevina Galladay. I am from Step Forward. I am the director over our neighborhood opportunity centers here. And I guess we're Gen X's are really represented here today in this meeting because I'm from that generation as well, but I'm a little borderline millennial, I would like to think. But I think the uniqueness of Gen X's is that we got the benefits of both worlds between the baby boomers and the millennials, so we could make it easier for us to adapt. And to go along with some of the unique things for Gen X is we were the first generation that had home computers. So we got to test it out and pave the way for that technology for the millennials. And we were also considered latchkey kids because our parents were working and we were left at home a lot. So we were the first generation to open up. If somebody knock on that door, don't open it for nobody. You better not open that door. So that independence. So I think that's what's unique about Gen X.
If I am following the lineup, I believe I'm next, everybody. Hello, I am Katie Oatsfall, coming to you today as an experienced nonprofit leader, CEO, currently in the contract space. Really happy to identify along with my panelists here as a proud Gen Xer. Yes, although I never took the can and crunched it to my bike wheel, I took a lot of fun laughs, crunching them to the bottom of my feet and tromping through the alley with my friends. So also a latchkey kid. I want my MTV, and to this day just pride myself on being super self-sufficient. I think that's real strength that Xers bring, but also as highlighted, we navigated that space between boomers and what has become the new normal of technology in the workplace. It all started around one Apple computer in grade school playing Oregon Trail, but look at us today. So thanks for letting me be here.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? My name is Brent Robinson. I am from Miami Valley Community Action Partnership. I am a caseworker for our family shelter here in Greene County. And I can pretty much pull from everyone's experiences and what everyone shared. I think it's real interesting. But I think what could possibly separate, I'm a millennial, could possibly separate the millennials is most of us, myself included, were raised by baby boomers. So we've gotten that experience and that tutelage and the ideology from the baby boomer generation. And then I would say the Gen Xers were kind of our mentorship coming along through just trials and tribulations of life, of life on life's terms. And even though I heard Miss Yvonne say that hip hop was the birthplace for the Generation X, but I believe that millennials had the golden age of music. And it's just my opinion. And I think that also definitely played a role in the technology where Mr. Brock had mentioned the transition from cassette tapes to CDs. We were from CDs to MP3 players to the MP3 players to iTunes and then now Apple Music. And I believe that we were probably a lot of the innovators and creators of a lot of that technology. And we had a intricate role in what we are listening to and seeing digitally today. So big ups to the millennials.
Well, I love it. First of all, I love it. And thank you all for bringing all that good energy And thank you to our participants too. Yeah, we see y'all over there with the 100s and the facts and thank you and all that. We see what y'all trying to do this day. Listen, as a Gen Xer, I'm just gonna say, don't start none, won't be none. So now y'all calm down out there. No, I'm just playing. Hey, how about you all interact with us? Give us a shout out, something you may remember from your generation. We heard some really, really good stuff. Somebody said, listen, we ain't have bottled waters. We had to go to the water hose. You had to go to somebody's backyard and drink the water out the water hose. So drop us some notes, give us some shout outs in terms of, some of the other fun stuff and things from your generation while we continue to examine this conversation with our guests. All right, panelists, I'm gonna ask you another question here and I'm going to go a little out of order. In 2020, a qualitative study on a group of nurse managers and the perceptions of mentoring in multi-generational workplace found that there were four main things that are important, or four main themes that were very important to multi-generational in the workplace: conceptualizing the mentoring, adding value, influencing, and supporting a mechanism. Like, those are all of the things that need to happen in order to have a genuine workforce investment. The nurse managers further described the positive and the negative aspects of their understanding of that intergenerational mentoring practice in their workspace. What kind, if any, mentoring and multi-generational workspace, and this is kind of going back to Brothers Brent's comments about the relationship with millennials, with Gen Xers versus baby boomers, which I think you eloquently stated. What kind of any mentoring and multi-generational workplace have you participated in, either as a mentor or a mentee? And was it a formal design kind of mentorship, or was it something a little informal and it kind of took over? So can you tell us, and you can go in out of order as you see fit. Whoever feel more led to answer, please do.
All right, I started off. I think for me, I think I participated in both formal and informal mentoring. And there's a lot of benefit to that in playing both roles too, as mentor and mentee. And for me, my aha moment in those spaces was realizing that effective mentoring is not really about age, but it's more about the exchange of knowledge and skills, right? I think one of the things too with some of the biases that the generations have about each other or whatnot can sometimes cause the divide that does not allow us to share those perspectives and those ideas. And we believe that, some of the younger generation may believe they can't learn anything from the older generation, and vice versa. The older generation, the younger, you can't teach me nothing. But I think that being able to kind of participate in this exchange of knowledge and skills, sort of back into like a village mentality, allows us to share experiences and knowledge that allow us to grow in different ways as it pertains to work, life, relationships, over every aspect of life. So I think for me, both roles have been intricate in my growth.
I would say, in regards to being a mentor and a mentee, in my early career, I'm a social worker. And in my early career, I spent a lot of time working in foster care department and working with a wide range of people or ages. And what I learned quickly is that being fair is not equivalent to being equal. Fair is not equal. So you definitely have to look at people and like, I won't give my 5-year-old the same thing I will give my 12-year-old. However, I'm gonna be fair to both my 5-year-old and my 12-year-old, but that don't necessarily mean that I'm equal to both of them. So I find myself giving that lesson now to my 16-year-old who compare herself to my 29-year-old. No, you cannot do that. So that was my aha moment early on. And I always say, she like, I know, Mom, fair is not equal. You're right.
I can go next. My aha moment, I believe, was when I realized on both sides, being a mentor or mentee, that it is a two-way street. And the transfer of either the energy or the information, like Brother Brock had mentioned, is something that I realized later on in life, probably around my early 30s. So not too far off from how old I am now, where and there might be something that I was struggling with, but I'm helping someone else. And based off of the reaction and responses from the information that I'm giving them, actually helped me in something that was unrelatable to the topic that we were talking about. And realizing that, and then doubling back to that person and then thanking them, and then them doing something for me without them even knowing how they were helping. So my aha moment was definitely realizing that in both sides of that coin, it's a two-way street. And, you know, what we can't do by ourselves, we can do together.
I was going to go ahead and let Katie go. I'll go ahead and go. My aha moment was when I was put in a room where I had to actually educate the Generation X and baby boomers on how to do something in regards to like youth development, since I was working in the youth development space. And that was such an interesting point, because to Mr. Brent's point of, you know, being a millennial where we learn from our previous generations, being in those households, it was different, where now, you know, I'm now kind of that natural authority figure just by way of, you know, that relationship of that teaching moment. So I then quickly realized that it is a two-way street, but it's also a checkpoint of holding yourself accountable of, okay, I've learned all these things from the previous generations, but now I have to actually stand on what I've learned to then give it back to the generation, right? It's kind of like that idea of Sankofa, of returning to the past to move forward, right? But then also then still passing that down to the generation below me, because I'm already in that position of working in that space of where I am educating them. So that was my aha moment. And it allowed me to realize that we do have our biases about the different generations, but there's a lot of similarities in the differences that we are recognizing. We're all trying to, you know, essentially do the same thing, but we just have our different approaches. But then we got to kind of check that bias of, okay, yeah, you used to do it this way, but I think I've learned a new way. But at the same time, maybe there is truth to how you've previously done something that I'm just missing and not recognizing. So for me, that was my aha moment of being put in that position at a fairly young age. And I'm currently 30, and that happened to me between the ages of like 24 to 27. So it was, you know, I was still truly like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing, I don't think, but I am confident what I'm doing, but still trying to have that respect level for the, you know, generation before me, as well as wanting to get the respect that I feel I deserve from the generation before me at the same time.
My aha moment that is coming to mind is from 20 years ago when I was a young professional. I was at a conference of all things, and it was one of the first times I sat in a space like this, talking about generations in the workplace. And the presenter at the time was talking about managing different generations in the workplace, and that if you have somebody on your team who's a boomer, and you know, maybe they got a flat tire on the way to work, so they're calling in late, you are going to get a phone call, and whether you answer or get the voicemail, it's going to be like 10 minutes long to explain why they're going to be 10 minutes late. And then when they get there, they're still going to come find you and again explain, oh my gosh, so sorry this happened, I'm never late. You know, there's a generational pride and difference that comes in that experience. And then this would have been, as you know, millennials were just entering the workforce. And this presenter talked about, and now you're going to manage this new generation of people that are going to send you a text that says late 10. And you're not even going to know when they get there, because they're going to hit their desk and go right to work. No explanation needed. And I have always carried that with me, twofold, because I think it is just a great description of truly like the value systems each generation brings to the workplace. But as a Gen X manager, how to find the balance in between. I really don't want that 10-minute explanation about a flat tire, but sometimes a text that says late 10 where you didn't even follow up with me when you got there isn't enough either. So I have to check myself and say, what is it about this that I need to know as a manager? It's not that the person needs to mirror my behavior. It's that I just need to know for the productivity in the workplace what's going on so I can manage the team. So it's understanding the different values that every generation brings to the workplace, and in those values, how they're going to communicate them to you.
Katie, I am so glad that we're leaving off on this, although all of the responses were dead on. But one of the things I want to carry from your last comment, and again, shuffling you all up and asking this question. So we heard Kay and her statistics share that the most diverse teams, 87% of the diverse teams make better decisions. 87% of diverse teams make better decisions. And then there was another statistic that I pulled from that we'll also add to the meeting material, that as a business imperative, 96% of American workers say that it's important for them to work for an organization that values workers of all ages. 96%. So 96% of Americans want to work in a place where all workers feel valued, they feel heard, they feel respected, and 87% of diverse workplaces make better decisions. So borrowing a little bit from Katie's last comments and thinking about some, Solomon mentioned some tools, Brent mentioned some tools, maybe some different approaches, things like that. Tell us what actual new tools or approaches have you tried? Has it been something that was perhaps prescribed by human resources or your chief people officer who suggested that you go in a different direction? Or was it more organic? Something like Katie mentioned, where you find yourself in this sandwich or in this, this predicament where you're needing to ask more hardball questions to yourself so that you can do the reflection, pivot, and then try something different. So anyone trying something new or different based off of your leadership or working with teams of multi-generational teams?
So for me, not necessarily as an employer, but just as a manager who, has a staff member, just working to some of the new approaches is just allowing the staff to have more creative autonomy, to be able to implement their ideas, to be able to put certain strategies in place, just be kind of promoting more flexibility in the work arrangements, providing training opportunities for them to upskill themselves. And one of the things that's been promoted here at Impact is professional development. So, not as an employer, but as an employee, I can speak to the fact that Impact allows that or promotes that, being able to seek out and or provide opportunities for training and more effective approaches to the work that we do here for the community that we serve, so that we can put in place the best practices in order to be our best selves for the community that we serve, and just continuing to foster that team building, taking team retreats, doing things to continue to unify the team, bringing the team together in more of a familial sense, making it more about being a part of a family where we all work together for that common goal and that common cause. So I think that those are very, I know for me as an employee to an agency that fosters that type of growth and that type of unity, to be free to have the wherewithal to pursue your purpose, both individually and as a group, has really helped me to excel and be my best.
I agree with that, Brother Brock. I believe communication is the key. I think if people communicate to each other, you can solve a lot of differences and understand each other better. So the team exercises, I know my team quarterly as a whole, because we have different sites, we get together quarterly just to hang out after work, just to kind of get to know that person as a person, to be more relatable to them. Whenever I do meetings, I try to do a icebreaker question just to get the break the ice and kind of get a different perspective from what somebody's feeling, or just to learn a little bit more about that person. I know one good thing that our organization has tried to is do DISC assessments. It's a personality test to kind of have people understand who you are as a worker. A lot of people don't understand who they are or what makes up their personality. It's different things other than our age that make up our personality, and what are my pet peeves and what are the pet peeves of other workers, and how can we navigate that? So I thought that was a really good thing that we implemented this assessments, and you kind of can know someone's work styles, you know, your own, so you can better navigate through the work environment.
Yeah, when we say communication, and Shay C in the chat room, she said that as well, that communication is the key because everyone communicates differently. And that's a great point, Trevina, because your boss is my boss. And she and I had an opportunity to exchange our DISC results. And what made it a great marriage, if you will, is I was able to now understand sometimes her inquisitive nature about things where I'm an executor. I just go. I just go. And for her, it is a matter of slowing down and processing what was being shared before you just go. And so, as you mentioned before, while she and I share the same, you know, where we both identify as women, we both identify as Black, we have all these commonalities, but there is a diversity in, again, our approaches and how we process things differently. So that was a great point in terms of maybe using, those kind of assessments. And then like Brock said about, just working in an environment that fosters that kind of communication, fosters relationships between everyone. Yeah. What about you, Brent, Solomon? What about you all? What do you think?
Well, for me, I think that, because I'm thinking about the question is, I believe that in my particular agency, just in our office space, it happened organically. It was more of a natural build because my boss is a baby boomer. So she believes in chain of command. But the longer we all got to know each other and in each other's backgrounds, and just understanding the foundation of, so there's 2 millennials, 1 Gen X, and 2 baby boomers in my office. So we have had an opportunity to know each other really well. So when there's a task that needs to be completed and my boss isn't in the area where we would practice that chain of command, because of the familiarity that we have with each other and the foundation that we've created with each other, I can make an educated and a smart decision based off of the conversations I've had with her over the time period that we've spent with each other. So I think it just naturally, and then coming back to her and saying, hey, this is the decision that I made based off the information that I have. And she was like, Brent, you made a great decision. Now, there are times where she's like, Brent, you should have let me know first. But that's also a learning experience that I've had over time with her. And I have less of the, you should have told me, and more of, that was a great decision based off of the foundation that we created from the beginning.
Brent out here doing some, I'll ask for permission later. I'll ask for forgiveness later. I love it, Brent. Okay, so what do you all think about this? Because Marilyn just posted a great comment that yes, communication is key. It is important because we also have to remember that culture also affects communication. And many other personality traits may impact communication, right? So, because you all have been such a great panelist, I got to throw y'all like a curveball. Everything sound all guns, flowers and roses. Y'all sound like the perfect, oh, this is how I talk to my team and I love everybody. And yeah, okay, let's get into your business now. Solomon, I'm going to pick on you first, brother. Tell us about a time where you didn't prioritize communication. Perhaps there were some personality conflicts or a cultural barrier or something, and you kind of made the wrong decision or the wrong approach to a situation, and it had to have some other lesson to it. But tell us a time where it wasn't always perfect. You did get the lesson out of it, but it wasn't a perfect situation.
Yeah. Well, so I will say this actually. In my previous role, I was as a research associate within the university. The team I was on, it was fairly small, and I was obviously the millennial, and then it was only three others, and they were all baby boomers. And I will say I was lucky enough that they were very understanding. However, it did take we did kind of clash in the sense of kind of to the point that you and Brent kind of spoke of about, I'm gonna just kind of do it anyways, and organically it's going to happen. That's kind of how it was for me, where it was like, I'm coming in, I have this experience, I have this knowledge, so I just kind of need you to trust me on this. But they were also very to that point of chain of command, but also just within our organizational structure and setting, it's just a lot of older tenured people that they're expecting things, and so it was affecting my leadership in terms of how the culture was affecting their communication, and that trickled down to me. And so I just kind of came in like, hey, I got this experience, I have this knowledge, so I just need you to trust me, and I'm gonna just do it how I do it, and I'm gonna give you the results because I know I'm gonna get the results, and I know I'm gonna get it done, and it's going to be good. Like, I'm very confident in my work. But because the communication wasn't on par, I was always constantly hit with feedback and what's the right word? I want to make sure I use the right word. Misconceptions and about how I went about my work. And so it led to a lot of dialogue and back and forth with, okay, I think you're missing the picture, and we need you to do it this way, blah, blah. And then I'm like, I am doing it this way, and I want you to see this picture because the reality is we're moving in this direction, or we need to move in this direction because of this. And so it was initially a lot of back and forth and a lot of, well, we've been doing it this way for a long time. We understand your approach, but we're not ready to just move yet. And I'm like, well, we need to be ready to move because clearly we've been doing this for a long time, and we're clearly missing the mark, and we're not reaching certain demographics, or we're not reaching certain people that need to, be a part of the research and results that we're doing. And yeah, that for about a good 6 months, that was kind of the culture that I was, dealing with, but it worked itself out organically, and it came together, and everybody came out on top. So.
And you out here bossing it up. So it looks like you survived well. That sounds like a good one. Well, Katie, you got a lot of great experience here too. Tell us, and particularly around maybe some of the cultural barriers on top of the multi-generational differences. Can you tell us about one of those experiences where it wasn't quite as nice as you wanted it?
All the time. I fail often, but I fail forward. Okay. So the one that's coming to mind as we're talking, many years ago now, worked for an organization that had a lot of long-term employees who all looked the same. And so as some of them retired, we were able to bring in a much more diverse workforce in all the ways, which was wonderful. But I think Solomon touched on it a little bit, like we get set in our ways, right? And so sometimes when we are placed in the seat to have the privilege to make decisions for others or drive the outcomes, we need to go back to that group of people that we are honored to serve and find out what is important to them. So the example I'm going to give is around benefits. Had this long-term very stagnant workforce who valued their retirement fund because of where they were in their career progression. So there were a lot of standardizations around the budget annually. As we brought in younger workforce, the mom in me says that was important. You need to be thinking about your retirement, even in your young 20s. But I know I didn't, so we learn better by experience than somebody telling us. And they prioritized that money in their pocket, you know, the money they needed for their life, for raising their young kids. And it was important for them to have healthcare benefits that were not exorbitantly expensive. So we were going into an environment of age-related care. And as an employer, we were able to really sit down with bringing in people from the team, diverse group of people from the team, and saying, what would this look like? And to spare a lot of the details that went into it, just to say at the end of it, what we came out with was a very minimal but fair retirement contribution, 2 different medical benefit plans, one that was your traditional PPO, so high level of coverage for staff that may have higher needs, but also then an option that was age rated. So our young families could get the care they needed for pennies compared to what they had been asked to contribute previously. And what we did I'm an Xer, I love autonomy, to give them choice was say, we are going to raise all the wages. And now you get to choose where you want that money to go. We as an employer aren't going to support the retirement fund in the way we used to. We're going to offer options in the medical space, and then we are going to financially support your ability to make decisions that are best for you and your family. But that, you know, ultimate success came out of a lot of missteps along the way. But you have to, one of my favorite things is assume good intent. I start all the groups I work with that thought. Assume good intent. I'm going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. But really at the heart of it, we want the same outcome. And I think that applies across the generations, especially in our workspace of community-driven services.
Yeah, that failing forward is so important. We do have to have some room to make those mistakes because you're absolutely correct. There's so much diversity, and you know, we don't know necessarily what people are dealing with sometimes when they're walking through the door. And so, yeah, we got to have those kind of conversations. That was good. That was a good one, Kaden. All right, I'm gonna let Dana land on this last one. And so while we hear from Dana, please post your questions for our panelists in the chat. We got a couple of more minutes before we adjourn for the day. And so we want you to take advantage of these great and talented and really, really super smart people. So please post your questions in the chat. Also, Sharon will be providing for you later the link to the evaluations. We will not let you go today if you don't fill out those evaluations. I know I really can't hold you, right? I really can't. But I am asking you to fill out the evaluations. All right, Dana, while we wait for some questions, come on, because I know you got something juicy. I know you had a good one for us, and you're still on mute.
Well, you know, I don't think it's as juicy. If I'm being honest with you, I think it's very simple. You ain't gonna make me talk about myself here, put myself on the spot. But one of the things that for me, right, where it was not all peachy all the time and everything, you know, roses and unicorns and stuff. It was just it was more of a communication kind of breakdown or barrier that I was at the forefront of. And I love Katie's analogy of failing forward. I'm absolutely stealing that, Katie. But there was just a time where we were going to implement, you know, like a focus group and, you know, invite some participants to come back in and, you know, give us some feedback for some things we were working on, again, to continuously improve the best practices and the services for our community. I'm lucky enough to work at an agency that's I mean, when you talk about diversity, I think that impact is like at the epitome of that. It's this, there's so many different generations here, people from all races, and you name it. The demographic here is very strong, and one of the reasons why I love working here. But so for me, it was a communication thing, and I was given the opportunity to take the lead on this particular project. And when I was given the opportunity to take the lead on this project, I dropped the ball on communicating exactly what was kind of already in place before I just started filtering out to everyone this information that was not yet confirmed, not yet set in stone. And so I had got the hopes of some participants up before, everything was really ready to go. Jumped the gun, so to speak. And then my leadership was like, hey, hold on, Dana, and I was kind of someone said it, I think it was Brent that was talking about, you shoot first, ask for forgiveness later. And so that was a moment where I had to learn, like, steps where I think I was really early in management too. I think that was like my beginning stages of my promotion to management. And I think I got a little overexcited about the project and the what we were going to do, and I just took off without really having my feet firmly planted or having any bearings about true understanding about chain of command, what the best way to communicate this was and what it was look like. So it was a communication shared between management that I shared out to everybody, and it wasn't supposed to be like that. But again, I'm lucky to serve in a very forgiving with very forgiving leaders who allowed me to fail forward and used it as a teaching and coaching moment for me to, just kind of continue to make sure that, I cross T's, dot I's, and be my best professional self at all times. And so for me, that was a learning moment, and just a time right there where, things got a little muddied up, but we were able to smooth it out, and things are running as planned.
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing, Dana. And listen, don't let me forget to not invite you, Solomon and Brent, on the project, because y'all take off. Y'all done. All three of you describe a scenario where y'all are just done. I love it. Thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. So as we prepare to close, and we're still waiting for questions, and if we don't get any, that's fine. But as we prepare to close, tell us one thing you hope that our participants, guests, everybody walks away with a better understanding, not only just about your generation, but communicating to others in the workspace. So tell us one thing you hope that folks will walk away from this conversation about maybe your generation, but also communicating with your generation, or expectations in the workplace that would make us all feel valued and respected. And anyone can start.
Start us off, and it was Kay who had brought it up earlier, and I love it. And so I'm going to challenge myself to do it, and challenge everyone else as well. And that's, let's all ask somebody who doesn't look like us, that we don't normally hang out with, that we don't think we have anything in common with, to lunch. If we have to fail forward and it's a total bomb, so be it. It's just a lunch. But I think we're all going to be really pleasantly surprised, enhance our communication, and break down some intergenerational barriers in the workplace.
Awesome. I like that. I think the one thing that will help everyone is once they realize that Generation X is the best, everything will work out. No, I'm just playing. So, but for me, I think the one thing that I hope that everybody kind of takes away from this is just that the importance, I believe, of just valuing the diverse perspectives and experience that each generation brings to the table, going back to that village mentality again, not only having it in our communities and our homes and things like that, but in the workplace, fostering the acceptance and the respect of perspectives from each generation and the things that we bring to the table, and then just actively working to continue to bridge those gaps to create, a stronger work and more inclusive workplace and workspace where everyone can thrive, everyone can feel heard, respected, and valued. And I think that, once you do that, when you restore value in people, or when you foster value in people, then you'll see that they begin to excel and give their best every day. I've been lucky enough again to serve at an agency that does that for me. And so honestly, it's the first job I've ever got up and want to get to work at. And so I think that kind of culture in involving everyone and valuing everyone kind of creates that where you get the best out of the people you work with on a daily basis.
I would say I definitely agree with that. I hope everybody got the feeling that each generation do, like you said, bring something to the table. You can learn, you never stop learning. None of us ever stop learning. You can learn something from a toddler. And the Gen Z, we didn't really talk about, that's the younger generation. It's an awesome generation. That's the generation that has so much creativity and so much drive and entrepreneurship. So just kind of looking at the beauty of each generation, and also make sure you consider the person as well, and not, just group everybody in one lump sum, because we're not only made up of our genders, but we're also made up of our race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, personalities, and different things that make up our identity.
I second everything that has been said. Just want to let you all know that we wouldn't be on Zoom if it wasn't for millennials. So that's for Mr. Brock right there. But no, I'm just kidding. But but no, as I see in the chat box, some people are talking about acceptance and being open to learn. Open-mindedness, I think, is one of the biggest pieces here. We talk about a lot of challenges. I would tell people to, if you leave with anything, to remember to be open-minded, but don't be afraid of the challenges either. I think the challenges is what actually builds our integrity and our authenticity and even our accountability. And that allows us to grow. And I think that's, as we've all kind of described, that's what even allowed us to have some of these important results in working relationships in this multi-generational environment, just because we took those challenges head on, whether it was hard or it was like, okay, I finally just give up because it ain't, I ain't gonna win. But regardless, it allowed us to grow and get better at not only our communication, but at what we do as a person as well. So I would say that.
And I'll finish it off with, because what everyone said was awesome and amazing. I would say more compassion, more empathy towards all people of all walks of life, but to be more intentional about it. And I know that's something that we all practice in our agencies, but to be more intentional about showing more compassion, empathy, and love.
I think you all hit it on the head today. Honestly, this was a really, really great conversation. And as Solomon said before, we have some great comments in the chat. Just again, acceptance of all the beauty of all the generations. I think that has been said repeatedly. Listen to everyone's opinions and suggestions, because there are value in it. Absolutely. Everyone brings something. Again, at 87% of diverse teams make good decisions. So it is important that we have to be open to learn from all generations in the workplace. Hey, listen, being a Generation Xer now, I love the other day I was in the store, I forgot my glasses. I couldn't see whatever I said, come here, young person, help me out, help a sister out. So I'm an auntie. I'm a full-fledged auntie. I'm admitted it on recording. I'm a full auntie and I love it. I love being an auntie now. So y'all can, I love my millennials. I love my Gen Zs. I'm there. Just before we go, Austin also asked another question in case anyone maybe want to just, respond to this. I think we covered some of this, but he stepped away for a minute, and he said that he believes that we all strive to communicate effectively all the time, but can you also offer some best practices as it relates to communicating with clients or the people we serve? Because we know that this multi-generational conversation is, like Kay opened up, is not just in our workplace, it's also in our homes and working with our clients. Working with our clients, that's vastly important. So someone can take a stab at that. Also, growing on purpose is not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's always keeping an open mind. Some people have to follow whether they have knowledge of a better way to do it. Be holistic in your healing. And then we got one more question. Stay curious with the conversation, even when you don't agree with the other person's approach or perspective. Oh, that was absolutely good, Ashley. So any other last, words in terms of communicating with clients and people we serve, and walking away with any other small nugget that anyone would like to share?
I will say to kind of, go ahead, Mr. Pro. Oh, I will say just to kind of include Gen Z in our conversation, something that I've learned from Gen Z, and it's something I've always done, just how I operate, but they have really made me realize how important picture and storytelling is. And I think when it comes to working with clients and other neurodiverse individuals, we all learn differently. Telling a story by pictures always somehow it just makes it click and it makes it work. And so when it comes to working with clients or just other people in general, sometimes a simple outline, a graph will literally just get the job done. Like, we don't have to overcomplicate it. And I've learned that from Gen Z, just thinking about how much I've learned from TikTok, how they go about trying to show pictures and tell these stories. And it's honestly, it's even made some of the work I do now so much better, even with the young people that I'm serving, and introduce them to topics that they aren't traditionally used to hearing about or knowing. And so storytelling, pictures, keeping it simple.
If I can say one more thing, I would say that in my experience with the clients, I think one of the things that works well for me, and that is being relatable, being absolutely transparent with the client, having compassion, and just meeting people where they are. Sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, of making the mistake, depending on a person's age or things like that, that they should just automatically know something or automatically be somewhere in their thought processes or in their competency or in their skills, right? And not making that assumption, and just kind of knowing to continue to serve with compassion and meet people where they are, because you never know what someone is walking through the door with. And sometimes they may just have to come into your office or come into your agency, and they might need to dump that there in order to go back out and be their best selves. And a lot of times people just need that space where they can feel respected and valued. And so remembering to continue to serve, not only with purpose, but with that passion, because the people that we serve may not always be having their best day. And so we sometimes are only that example of from tragedy to triumph that they may see or experience or come across. And you never know what just sometimes a warm hug or a kind word, what that will inspire in someone else. And so just constantly serving with that compassion.
All right. Well, I think on that note, you all, I know we can't see you all, but please give a warm thank you, a round of applause for this amazing panelist. I tell you, I really know some dope people, and today was another good takeaway, If nothing else, just again, approach every situation with good intentions, keep an open mind, be passionate. These are the things we heard, and it doesn't matter about generation. If we're leading with good intentions, with an open mind, all of the things that we've heard from these wonderful speakers, then we can continue to work together. And I promise, Solomon, we're gonna get some Gen Zs. I don't know that many Gen Zs, but I know you now, and you'll help me out. So it wasn't done intentionally. I just don't know as many Gen Zs, but yes,
I got one for you, Yvonne. In the
you
future.
got me one. Okay, see, there we go. So bring it on, it on. Well, thank you to our entire all of our participants. Thank you for hanging in there with us today. Again, remember that you can go back, review this on our YouTube page. We'll follow up with you. And to our panelists, seriously, I thank you. Thank you. You were amazing. All right, everyone, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
God bless.